Steam, the gaming hub for PC gaming, filled to the brim with games. This is a piece of software that I have used pretty much daily for the last few years, and will probably still be using it for years to come. But how did it get this way? What did Valve do to get themselves to where they are today? And why was Steam created in the first place? To find out why, let's take a step back in time. No, not that far. In 1999, Valve had a problem. They had no easy way to release patches and updates to their games. Whenever they released a patch for Counter-Strike or for Half-Life, the online player base would drop drastically as people were trying to download it wherever they could, including sites that looked like this. As you can imagine, this also led to a problem where people would end up downloading a Trojan or some sort of computer virus. This is when a light bulb lit up inside Valve's headquarters. How about they just create a platform where they can publish the patches themselves? And while they're at it, they can include anti-cheat and anti-piracy software. But before they could start development, they needed funding. And they also needed to renegotiate their contract with Sierra Studios, the publisher, and at the time, even a partial owner of the Half-Life franchise. Valve and Sierra ended up forming a new contract, which took away Sierra's rights to Half-Life. And because of this, Valve had the right to distribute their games digitally now. Valve sought funding and development resources from many companies, like Microsoft and Yahoo, but they declined their proposal, which ultimately led to Valve developing Steam by itself. Development officially started in 2002, and it quickly went into beta testing in March, with it eventually releasing to the public in September of the same year. Steam is known for being a shop where you can buy all your games, but at this time that feature wasn't even developed. Steam was a bare bones product where it was purely used for downloading patches and updates for games, and it wasn't even mandatory for single player games. But in 2004, Steam was forever changed. Valve were releasing a small game. You've probably never heard of it. It's called Half-Life 2. I've even made a video about it if you want to check it out after watching this video. Anyway, this game was revolutionary in many ways. It didn't only change how games were made from this point onwards, but also how games were consumed. Half-Life 2 was very successful at launch with sales numbers, and Steam just couldn't keep up with the demand. Half-Life 2 forced users to download and use Steam in order to play the game. This left a bad taste for Steam in the general public, and they found it to be very intrusive. Even though you owned the disc, you weren't even allowed to play the game. But not all was bad. This was the first game that was distributed online on Steam, where people could buy and play the game without having to go into an actual shop. And even though not very many people bought the game on Steam compared to physical copies, Valve got a lot more money per copy sold. The high profit margins garnered a lot of interest from other companies. And in 2005, Valve started to approve and publish games from third parties like id Software, Ubisoft, Capcom, EA, Activision, and the list just goes on and on and on. And from that point, you basically know what happens. That's the quick gist of the history on Steam, but we know that there is so much more. So let's just take a look at some of the Steam features and products. The first product is the subscribe button. Please subscribe. The most recent product from Steam is the Steam Deck, which is pretty much Valve's answer to the Nintendo Switch. While I've had a lot of doubts regarding it, especially when considering Valve's older products, it seems to be doing surprisingly well, with reports saying that it sold over 1 million units as of October 2022. While it isn't labeled under the Steam brand, actually wait, why isn't the Steam Deck called the Valve Deck? Or why isn't the Valve Index called the Steam Index? This inconsistency is killing me. But anyway, the Valve Index is a high-end VR headset, and while it is one of the most expensive kits out there, I hear that it seems to be worth the price if you can afford this kind of luxury. A Steam Link was a streaming box where you could stream your games to any screen. I remember buying a Steam Link for a very cheap price as Valve decided to discontinue it and just wanted to get rid of the stock as soon as possible. I only ended up using it once or twice, with me realizing that my internet is just too bad to even play the games this way. Along with the Steam Link also came the Steam controller. There's nothing to say here really, it's just a regular controller for the most part. But instead of having two analog sticks, the second one was replaced with a touchpad, which certainly was different anyway. I can't really say if it's more comfortable this way, but hey, the more options the better. It was discontinued in 2019, with the remaining stock dropping a lot in price, just like the Steam Link. The Community Workshop has been around since 2011, and is a vital part of the survival of many games. The workshop is a hub for user-generated content, such as mod packs, new assets, and maps for the community to play through for the respective games. Some mods got so popular to the point that Valve even bought workshop content from various creators, such as from a bunch of different maps for the Left 4 Dead 2 Last Stand update, to Counter-Strike Global Offensive $1 million skin competition for the Dreams and Nightmares case collection. And since we are speaking of community, there are a lot more features for this besides the workshop. You have the general stuff, like friends list, chat rooms, voice calls, various emotes from a bunch of different games, and one of the coolest parts in my opinion, the Steam Market and inventory. You can buy pixels on a screen for an absurd price. Okay, this is epic. Steam user profiles are also a very cool way to show off your personality and achievements gained in games, and how many hours you've spent playing your favorite games. Steam Greenlight was a way for developers to put their games on Steam for a small price. Developers could submit their game to Greenlight, and enough community members approved or were interested in the game, it would be put onto the Steam market. Although it's now discontinued, games like 7 Days to Die, A Hat in Time, and Five Nights at Freddy's wouldn't be on this platform now. The reason why it was discontinued was because of the large amount of spam and inappropriate games being submitted, and the moderation team just couldn't reasonably keep up. However, in Steam Greenlight's place, a new system was found which still allowed developers to submit their games on Steam, albeit with a fee of $100. And last but not least, the Steam app. With it getting a redesign a few weeks back, it's basically just Steam, but on the phone. The Steam app is mostly used for the Steam Guard. There's two-factor authentication for when you want to log into a computer. If you don't know what that means, it's basically the 5-digit code that you put in after you give the correct username and password. I really wanted to mention this point, but I just wasn't sure where to put it in the script, so I'm just gonna say it now. They were selling apparel like mugs and t-shirts in their store. They eventually ended up outsourcing it to a third party, and now you can buy merchandise at this link here. Yes, it does look very shady, but it is the real deal. Unfortunately though, I've heard a lot of stories that the third party hasn't been the best with customer support, and that items take a lot longer to arrive. Steam isn't going to go anywhere for quite some time. Ubisoft and EA Games tried to make their own platforms, Uplay and Origin respectively, but after a few years, both companies realized how big of a market share Steam has, and decided to re-release their games onto the platform. The biggest scare Steam has is Epic's game launcher, with games like Rocket League and Fortnite being exclusives on that platform, along with free monthly games, and a much better developer payout ratio. Epic still lacks many features though, with user profiles and achievements first coming to my mind. I log into Epic once in a blue moon, only to claim their monthly games if it seems interesting enough to me. Steam has been growing steadily since its release, and at the moment of writing the script, it has over 21 million people online on it right now. The only realistic way I see Steam going down is if Valve goes public and the investors kill it off just to make a quick buck. Imagine if one day we wake up and all of a sudden we have to pay €10 a month just to play games online on Steam. That would be ridiculous.